Hi everyone, I'm Darren Eisenberg. Thanks for joining Synergy Effect for this presentation by Yamini Naidu on how to connect, engage and inspire with storytelling. And when you think about those three skills, connecting, engaging and inspiring, if we can get better at each of those as leaders, we're going to be that much more effective in producing our desired results. Yamini believes that whatever you're trying to achieve professionally and in business, storytelling can help you. And she is a great teacher. I used to use mixed metaphors when I spoke, but after just a short chat with her, I'm pleased to say that fortunately that train has sailed. In Yamini's spare time, she studies comedy and has even featured in the Melbourne Comedy Festival. So if anyone knows how to stand and deliver a powerful presentation, it is no doubt our stellar storyteller, Yamini Naidu.
My teacher, Miss Asha, came into the classroom and she asked us to think of a sentence. And she said the sentence could only have 10 words and each of those words could only have 2 letters. And the sentence had to make sense. 10 words, 2 letters, a sentence that had to make sense. We tried and we came up with nothing. She then wrote up on the board, if it is to be, it is up to me. If it is to be, it is up to me. That day, Miss Asha influenced a classroom full of children to think differently about life. But not just in that moment or for that day, for the rest of our lives. That was my first brush with influence. And I was hooked. Influence is about getting people who turn up to turn on. It's about getting your clients to pick you. Today, tomorrow, and into the future. Now, I believe so much in influence that more than 15 years ago, I co-founded a company that did just one thing. It specialized in the oldest form of influence, in storytelling. So here I am. I'm an economist by training, and I co-founded a company that does storytelling. I was so excited. I raced home to tell my mom. I'm like, Mom, I'm going to be doing storytelling. And my mom replied, like any good Indian mother would, is that a job? Why can't you be in IT or be a doctor? Storytelling is as old as time, but in terms of influence, it's the contemporary tool of our time. I'm going to share with you 3 ideas around influence. So traditionally, influence has been about hard power, about command and control, about yell and tell. If you've ever had a boss pull rank on you, or you shouted at your kids, clean up your room or else, you've experienced hard power. Way back in the 15th century, Machiavelli wrote The Prince. And in The Prince, he said, it's better to be feared than to be loved. But that's not what we want for us as modern professionals. There are a couple of limitations of using hard power to influence. You could get outright rebellion. You could get grudging compliance, when people just do the bare minimum. Or you could get that other horrible thing that happens where people say yes, but they do nothing. And with influence, we're trying to get people who turn up to turn on. And hard power can turn them off. So, in the 1990s, along with high-waisted ripped jeans, was that just me? A couple of us? The Spice Girls, remember them? And the Simpsons. We discovered soft power. Soft power comes to us from the work of Harvard business professor Joseph Nye. He said soft power is about using connecting, consulting, collaborating, to influence. In Hollywood terms, I think of hard power as being like Arnold Schwarzenegger and soft power, like Marilyn Monroe. It's beautiful, it's slow, it's seductive. Poor Arnie, it turns out there's so little we know about him. Do you know he's an economist by training? Did you know when he was governor of California, he didn't take a salary his entire tenure as governor? And this is perhaps the least known fact about him. He's a brilliant actor. We have all grossly underestimated him all this time. He had a love child, and for 10 years he kept it a secret from his wife, Maria. That takes brilliant acting, don't you reckon? So hard power is like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Hard power is like coercion. Soft power is about persuasion. And sometimes when we are trying to influence, only soft power will do. To find out why, I want you to travel with me to Singapore. I love Singapore. Sparkly clean, sizzling hot, great food. Sadly, on October 30th, 2000, Singapore Airlines had a fatal air crash. 83 people died. It's a very sad time. Tiny country, their national carrier. A press conference was called, and the relatives and friends of the deceased were invited to attend. The press conference was also beamed live around Singapore, and everybody in Singapore stopped what they were doing to watch. At the press conference, Rick Clements, who was then Vice President of Public Affairs, he stood up behind the lectern. He offered his sincerest condolences to people in the room, and he said, "We at Singapore Airlines, we're going to look at every step, process, policy." Just then, a man in the audience who had lost his brother stood up and started hurling abuse at Rick Clements. A security guard started to move towards this man to drag him away. When Rick Clements stepped out from behind the lectern, he flagged the security guard away and he started to walk towards this by now silently sobbing man. The camera panned on Rick, and you could hear a pin drop in the auditorium because nobody knew what would happen next. Rick walked up to the man, he reached out, and he hugged him. That hug, that moment of soft power, was when Rick Clements influenced not just people in the room, but an entire nation, that they could move forward together. Soft power, it can give you influence far beyond the edges of hard power. Soft power at work is connecting, consulting, collaborating. But soft power too, as an influence tool, has its limitations. Soft power takes time. It takes meetings, and more meetings. Soft power is also incredibly hard to do well. And this is what leaders all over the world tell me as they're making the shift from hard power to soft power. This is my family, and this grandma and the 3 grandkids. And when my daughter was Tara was 13, for a week by mistake, I was taking her teenage multivitamin tablets instead of my own. And when I found out, I just had so much fun with it. I immediately adopted teenage attitude. I'm like, meh, whatever, whatevs. I'm still working on it. It was hard work. It was great fun, but it was hard work because that's not who I am. And this is what leaders tell me, that soft power takes a lot of hard work. The other thing about soft power is it's incredibly subtle. If hard power is a fist, soft power is a fingertip. So sometimes it doesn't land. So is there something else we all need to influence? Because no matter what you do, every day at work, it's always about 2 things. We've got to engage people, our clients, our teams, our stakeholders, and we've got to deliver results. We've got to engage people, and we've got to deliver results. Could the tools of influence that we have been using, hard power and soft power, could there be something else we should all be trying? I was just walking down Glenferrie Road, Hawthorne, the other day, near where I live in Melbourne. And I saw an incredible sight. I saw this, young, sharply dressed businessman in a suit and a tie and spiky gelled hair. And he was in the public phone booth using the public phone. And it just looked so wrong. I wanted to press my nose against the glass and go, "Oh my God, where's your mobile phone?" Are we missing the mobile phone of influence? Should we be all trying something different in terms of influence? So I want to introduce you to one of my clients who did just that. His name is Michael. He was a leader responsible for 20 retail branches. They had targets. And in the 2 years that Michael was leader, nobody was meeting their targets. He tried everything. He tried hard power, didn't work. He tried soft power, and he had meeting after meeting after meeting. And through those meetings, he found out. People said, "You know what, it's the one thing we hate to do. Every time when we rock up into work, we think, oh, Not targets again. So Michael decided to try something different. The next time he went to visit some of his branches, this is what he shared with them. When I was a child, I hated eating Brussels sprouts. Every time Brussels sprouts were served at dinner, I'd push the Brussels sprouts to one side of my plate and I'd eat my dinner, knowing very well that at the end of the meal, my mother would make me eat cold Brussels sprouts because I couldn't leave the table unless I'd eaten my vegetables. One night, when Brussels sprouts were served yet again, I decided to eat my Brussels sprouts first. I then relaxed and enjoyed the rest of my meal. Do you think we could treat our targets like Brussels sprouts? None of us can leave the table unless we've eaten our Brussels sprouts. Do you think we could eat them early and fast in the week? And then we can all relax and enjoy the rest of our week. I saw Michael 2 weeks later, and he had traveled to 11 branches narrating Brussels sprouts. And he said the most incredible thing had happened. For the first time in 2 years, everybody in those 11 branches was either meeting or exceeding their targets. Not only that, no one was talking about targets anymore. They were all talking about Brussels sprouts. Michael used Brussels sprouts for 6 months because every time he did, he was able to engage people and deliver results. That day, Michael quantum leaped his influence as a leader because he discovered a power that is as old as time, yet a power that's the contemporary tool of our time. He discovered story power. Business storytelling is storytelling with a purpose and for results. Storytelling with a purpose and for results, just like Michael did. But why? Why story power? Because hard power informs, soft power invites, and story power inspires. Hard power informs, soft power invites, and story power inspires. We live in a world bloated with information, and at the same time, there's an inspiration famine. And storytelling can help us turn that famine into a feast. I want you to now travel back with me to the 1990s. I know I love the 1990s, high-waisted ripped jeans. If someone was using the phone, you couldn't get on the internet, but you never lost your phone because it was attached to the wall. May 23rd, 1992, Vedran Smalovic was sitting in his apartment in Sarajevo when suddenly he heard a massive explosion just outside. He raced to his window and he looked out through the smoke onto a scene of horror. 22 people, many of them his friends and neighbors, who minutes before had been standing in a queue to buy some bread from a bakery, now lay dead. This was war, and Sarajevo had become ground zero in the conflict. Vedran was deeply shaken. He felt helpless and very sad. But when he went to bed that night, he decided to do something. He decided to do the only thing he knew how to do, to make music. He was the principal cellist in the Sarajevo City Opera Orchestra. The next morning, dressed in formal attire as if a performance, with a cello in one hand and a white plastic stool in the other, he stepped out of his building, crossed the road, and sat down amidst the rubble of the bakery bombing. And with sniper fire overhead, in war-ravaged Sarajevo, he played his cello for 30 minutes. Vedran would play his cello for 22 consecutive days to honor each victim of the bakery bombing. A few days after Vedran started playing, something changed. The snipers held off, the bombs stopped, and briefly, the madness of war was replaced by the magic of music. After a few days, people began to join him in ones and twos, either to listen or to play. And by the end of 22 days, every member of the Sarajevo City Opera Orchestra who was still alive was playing with Vedran. That image of Vedran, playing his cello amidst the rubble with sniper fire overhead, gave me goosebumps and tears. Vidran Smalovic, how brave. A leader choosing to step up and make a difference in a dangerous world. Vidran made a difference through his music. Imagine if we made a difference to our world through storytelling. Story power. It can change the world. Story power. Use it to change your world.